friend Lexi remembered to start the recording. That is so awesome. Between us, we managed to always be forgetting to record.
I
Um, so I have known Janice for many, many years, but what I would like to do is to have you all get to know her. If you don't know me, my name is Joanne Butcher. I'm a business coach for filmmakers. And so I'm always really interested in how filmmakers build their careers. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so my first question that I want to ask is, when did you first know you were a filmmaker?
well, um, I first knew I was a film. Well, let me just say, I became my love of film started at a really young age, which is of course what really led to it. And that was uh, I grew up. I'm a baby boomer. I grew up in New York, and there was a channel, Channel 9. We had 13 channels in New York at that time, many more than the rest of the country because it was in New York. Those of you, if you're from there, you remember. And there was something called the $1 Million Movie. It was on Channel 9 or 11 and had the theme to Tara as its opening from Gone with the Wind. Of course, I didn't know that when I was a kid, but I would hear that,
Da,
and
da,
that,
da.
exactly. That was to me. I didn't know about Gone with the Wind. So I was little. My dad, every Sunday was his day to just Saturday and Sunday because he worked during the week and he worked in the city. I grew up on Long Island in Massapequa Park, South Shore, and near Great South Bay and Jones Beach. And anyway, my father, on particularly in the winter and fall, whenever it was rainy, or he would watch. He loved movies. His love of movies, and he grew as a child of the Depression, fought in World War II, and so the movies were his thing. And so on these Sunday afternoons, $1 Million Movie would come on, and he would say, "Oh, Janice, Charlie Chaplin. Oh, Janice, Buster Keaton. Oh, Gunga Din." And I had no idea what any of this was, but he would go, "Oh, we're gonna watch it." And so it became this ritual where I would sit in my dad's lap in a big armchair, like a big armchair, and he would cross like his legs over, and I would nestle on his shoulder and put my legs through his crossed leg, and we would watch, of course, in black and white. I thought all movies were black and white. Everything, Gunga Din, Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, Katharine Hepburn, whatever was on. And I think obviously, my connection to him, and my father had cameras. He had a Leica. He had, my father took tons of snaps when he was in World War II, stationed in France.
Really? I didn't know that. That's
And
amazing.
he had an 8 millimeter. So he was documenting my brother's birth in 1950. They're building their house, my birth, 7 years later. And I mean, when my parents had their 60th wedding anniversary, may they rest in peace, that's years ago, uh, I transferred 12 hours of 8 millimeter, not Super 8, 8 millimeter
Hmm.
films that had little titles on them. He did everything. And back in or when my brother was really a kid in the 50s. And I had a call when I did that transfer, and I'm going to get back to my story, but they called me up from Echo Park. I live in Los Angeles, Echo Park Film Center, which did the transfer. And they said, who was the DP on all this 8 millimeter footage? Hilarious. I said, the DP, really? I said, his name is Marty Engel. Why are you asking? They said, well, this is the best 8 millimeter footage we've ever seen. I mean, I should really get
No.
stockhouse. He has Pan Am planes taking off in 1959 when my parents went to Acapulco. And I mean, beautiful shots. Yeah, I should get it situated with Periscope or one of the stock houses. I'll talk
Yes.
to you about that, Joanne. But anyway, yeah, I said, yeah, it was my father. And at the time, Penny Marshall was doing research. They wanted to use home movie footage of that ilk, skating on, frozen ponds and hockey and Little League and the stuff that's very 50s and early 60s. And I had it all. And
Oh, I bet
as
it's fantastic. I didn't know
that's
this
what got
story.
that's
This
what
is so
set,
great.
set me was my father's love of movies, and I got this love of movies, and I became obsessed. And I would go to the library, and when I got to a certain age, I started taking out books about the movies. And then my first allowance, I think my first book I bought, one of my first books was an autobiography on Humphrey Bogart. So I was kind of obsessed, and then as a teenager, it was a straight shot into the city. I would take the Long Island Railroad. I would cut school to go see movies. I would go to the Bleecker Street Cinema. I would go to the Waverly Cinema. I would always, when I was really little, I would look in the arts and leisure section of the New York Times to see, because everything was on TV, what movies were going to have. There were a lot of movies that were on back then. It was like Turner Classic Movies was on all the time on different channels. Yes. And I would see if my favorite actresses, Greta Garbo, really rare, Vivian Leigh, really rare, Katharine Hepburn, Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall. I would look at for certain genres and certain actors, and if there was something that was rare, I would circle it, and then I would feign being sick. I would do my thermometer, on my leg, and my mother would let me stay home, and I would watch movies. So yeah, I was a bit obsessive, and so that's what set me on my path. And I was always auditioning for plays, and then I started, in school, and I wasn't part of the weirdo theater group. I was always other, but not that. I was other, but other with everybody, all the oddballs. But I knew I was friends with the theater people. I just didn't fully I was all over, as Joanne knows me. I'm very much my own tribe. And so then in high school, I was directing a couple of plays, and it was like, oh, that's who I am. I mean, it really felt, and because I had said to my father when I was like 13, I want to go to Juilliard. He said, not on your life. He goes, you need to have a craft, you need to learn a skill. I kept up the Juilliard thing for 2 years, and then he finally said when I was like 14, 15, you need to have a craft and skill. So I was like 15, 16, I started to think about where am I going to go to school? And I knew I wanted film, and I wanted film. I did not want a communications department. I got accepted, and anyway, I applied to different schools. I went to UCLA at 16 for summer school, and everybody thought my girlfriend and I were freshmen in college. We ended up dropping out and hitching all over Los Angeles. It's just like, I mean, now when I look back, I go, oh my God, if I was my mother, I would have killed me. So I ended up going to USC Film School back in the dinosaur era, when it was not the School of Cinematic Arts.
Not the fabulous USC.
The money coming from, it was not even Spielberg back then. It was promised from George Lucas, because he had been there before. George Lucas was promise. I graduated, and the money didn't start rolling in until 8 years after I graduated. I graduated around 1980. But when I was there, we were the poor man's nephew of the performing arts department. There was no School of Cinematic Arts. We were called the cinema department. There, we got the first video equipment when I was there. And so that's it. I mean, I got into film school. I was 17 years old, and I turned 18 like a month after I arrived. I was a baby. I was one of the few undergraduates back then. Undergrads and grads took their basic film classes together, which I thought was a tremendous education for me, because I was always hanging out with older people.
Right.
I just was that kind of kid. I was always, always curious.
It's so lovely. I know how close you were to your parents, but I just loved hearing this story about your father, and I didn't know that he was a cinematographer. And yes, we got to do something with that footage.
A whole movie, but he got, when he could get the Bell and Howell, which I had for years. I still have the projector, by the way. I have a Bell and Howell 8mm projector and a Camp Royal, which still had to do a drop. He got a Nizo, which is what he let me use to make. Back in the day, my first films were made with Super 8. There was no video. I made 5 Super 8 films.
Don't talk about Super 8 as if that's how I started, was Super 8.
I love Super 8. I used it in tons of my docs that I did. I always loved mixing media. I used 8 mil. Did I use 8mm? No, I used Super 8. 16, when I made my Road to Miss America doc for Discovery, I mixed it all. I had, my DP was a film, not, so I had a Nizo, and then my father wouldn't let me use his Beaulieu. He had a Beaulieu with an ingenue lens. He said, no, you got to learn, you can't have a Beaulieu.
So when you were there, the 17-year-old in college, in this nascent, I guess, cinema department. Did you, were you still interested in directing, or were you thinking, because it sounds if you, I don't know if I picked up that you were thinking about cinematography.
No, photography is always
Photography.
my kind of
Mm,
go-to meditation. And at one point, I had people say, you should really put a portfolio together. You should really go out because you could make money. I never got it together. It was always a way. And I've sold photos. I've had, I didn't monetize it. I didn't want to be pressured down that road. Photography for me is a form of meditation in action. It's a way of getting very still and being immersed. So I could have pursued it. I didn't. In the early days of punk and, kind of new wave or whatever, I was shooting bands. I was doing a lot of that stuff just because I wanted to. But no, directing, I always said I am director. But I got my ass kicked in numerous times. USC back then was really, it was very simplistic, and in a certain way it was great. If you were a dude, when I got out of film school, I was barely 22 and I looked like I was 16. I mean, I mean, even today I teach. No, I tell my students, I said, how you really think you're going to direct? I said, hello, ring, ring, clue phone. I said, unless you do a short that really catches fire, I said, or you have your channel or you start promoting, and some of them are so smart, they really know how to promote. But I said, 9 out of 10 of you think you're going to do features. First of all, features they're not going bye-bye, but it's a whole new world. It's the e-ticket ride and everything is about streaming. And I used to drive, if Joanne knows, if you watch a feature film on this, I will kill you. I will allow an iPad mini. And now we've just been through the pandemic. So I just said, 9 out of 10 of you will work your way up. You will start out as assistants. I said, if you really want to get up and if you're really independent, you'll do what I did, which is independently always try to be making stuff, doing stuff. But you'll find your way. You'll find your way. And I think the most jobs available for younger people these days is in nonfiction programming because it's cheaper. And I was a showrunner. As you know, I made tons of documentaries, documentary series. I dare say very few reality shows because that's what really pulled me to drop out of doing it because I couldn't stand the direction it was going. And I had to do what moved my heart. But, I fell backwards into making documentaries. When I was at USC, I thought I was going to be doing narrative.
Right, because you started out directing plays, and then that would seem a natural.
Yeah, and I love
progression.
movies, and my Super 8 film that really turned the page for me, and I'll tell you what really solidified it, which is interesting. My second Super 8 film, my first one, I was kind of clueless. I mean, I made it, but the second one, between the first and second, I'd been watching movies for years, suddenly editing, because I was in film school, so it was something in my brain click editing. And between the first and the second film was massive jump. I mean, I understood how editing works. So my father had always said, focus on a skill. So my skill was editing. It was just, I was a natural editor. It just came to me. My fourth Super 8 film, I got me and one other guy who became my partner at that time for films we made. We were the only 2 people to get A's out of 75 undergrads and grads. My fourth film was called Between the Shadows, and it's about a paranoid schizophrenic who thinks someone's trying to kill her. And Woody Omans, who was a famous DP, was one of our teachers, and he said his first note to me was Hitchcock couldn't have done it better. I scared the shit out of him. It was great. It was a thriller. It was great, but then of course you get kicked in your butt in Hollywood. But that editing, so editing became my way to make money. I never worked my way up as an editor. I did a few assistant editing jobs. I wasn't going to go through the union because there's no way I was going to wait 10, 12 years to do what I wanted to do. I've always been other, and I had to do it my own way. So I got kicked in my ass numerous times, but I always managed to do it my own way. I should have been in New York, really, not in LA.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah,
So, when you graduated and you had made these short films, what was your next step? I guess you'd already realized you were an editor.
Well, it was getting, my father, I came from a upper middle class family, and I wish he had made me work all those years in college, but he didn't. But he said, when I graduated, you got 6 months, kid, and you're cutting you loose. And so I shit a giant brick. And, I had a job, but I got several more jobs. I sold sandwiches. I sold sandwiches
This
with a company.
filmmaker's life, the filmmaker's life, selling
I sold
sandwiches.
sandwiches on wheels, movable feast, or as we called it, movable fetus. And Bill Paxton was part of the crew then. Everybody was starting out. He had made a film called Fish Heads. I remember these little snippets. There were a couple other eventually to be big. And everybody was doing drugs, and everybody had been up all night long going to punk shows, and then we'd come and do sandwiches, and people were, it was a crazy time. And I had a great route. I had the Beverly route. I went to the Writers Guild. I went to ICM. It was kind of funny. I mean, and then at the time I had made my last film at USC. It was a 16 millimeter film I made with Martha Davis of the Motels. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
Yes.
And she, for her first album, and I made a short film. And I don't know, then I did another thing I started putting together, had a producer's hat. Like I would grab equipment. Like Joanne, I would grab equipment. And we would go down and we would film. And then I would have to edit it together. So it was kind of that sort of a thing. And I did a thing called a performance thing where I had a friend who was a bass player, a studio musician, and an artist named John Millay. They were best buddies growing up. And I had a white psych. I got the white psych at A&M, and A&M Studios, the Charlie Chaplin Studios, they were called. It was A&M Records, and now I think it was Henson. I don't remember. It's on La Brea. And we got in there on a Sunday, and we did Free for All. My friend Wayne Isham, he was managing the stage. He ended up becoming a big commercial director, music video director, but we all started out together. And we just did, John painted freehand with paints on the white psych, like splat. I mean, it was amazing. And Kevin, they both wore white coveralls. Kevin brought his white bass, and they're just all improv. And we edited together. I edited together and I remember at one point, John was he was like kind of snotty about it. And he looked at a cut and he said, we're in the editing room. And he said, yeah, but is it art? And I said, that's questionable, but that's the title. So it's called Yeah, But Is It Art? And I got it onto radio. It was a thing on the midnight special. At that time was on like at midnight on Saturday night, and they had radio 1990 and something called Night Flight, and they would show short films from young people. And that got on there. And then one of the agents at, I don't know, someplace said, hey, did you make that? So it was kind of interesting. So I did a lot of that. My first, I was always trying to direct, and the only way that they were going to give a woman a chance to direct was through music videos. So that was and I was there in the beginning of music videos. There was a period where I was supposed to be the first woman to direct a music video. I had it taken away from me in a very politically nasty situation. I had been kicked in my ass, but nothing like that. And it basically forced me to I stopped directing. I said, I'm done. And I stopped directing for 5 or 6 years, and I just edited. I edited music videos, I edited promos, whatever. I made more money. And, but I did my share of odd jobs. Like I worked at the William Morris Agency. I lasted 4.5 months.
Not bad. Was that time when you were not directing, and that's I didn't know that. That's sad. I've had those things happen to me as well. Where I had a dream and just realized they were not going to let women do that. For me, it was about the BBC. And I never did get to work at the BBC later, but and it's sad to have those things happen. But when you were editing during those years, is that where you got so involved in music and with musicians? Was it that time?
Yeah, well, it was leading up to that, but yeah, because I just always, music is the soundtrack to your life. Mm-hmm. And I don't listen to a lot of music. Like in the morning, I like stillness. I don't like electronica. I like to listen to the birds. I'm not one of those people. One of my roommates and one of my best friends had like, he was the campus DJ. He had like over, 5,000 albums at school.
Yeah.
But music is the soundtrack to your life. And I teach editing, and I teach documentary film, and I make documentaries. But yes, I started doing that sort of stuff. I did edit a couple of features. I also directed a couple of short narratives. But I've always collected music because I listen for music that moves me. It's soundtrack cues. I call it my scratch music. I tell, directors are supposed to bring the music to the editor, but I always tell my editors, 9 times out of 10, especially when you're starting out with young directors, they don't even know their ass from their elbow, and they're not going to bring you the music unless they're really, really schooled that way.
Right.
Editors start curating. I have students who, and the practice is for me, you get a project. What are you doing? What's your research? You're going to do the deep dive dig. And it's hard with the younger generations about research, but you've got to do your research. And I say this to anybody, whatever position you're doing on a film and whatever genre it is, do your research. And that includes music. What does it sound like when you read a script? Now the director is going to have especially a feature director is going to know the music, or is going to have been curating music for their project. But it's really good editors to curate, so you have suggestions as well, because in the beginning you're just going to be using scratch music, and the composer will copy that. I've laid in scratch music. I want Booker T and the MGs, Green Onions. Everybody loves that. I used it in my Molly Ivins film. We have 10 needle drops. We have a great soundtrack for the film. 10 needle drops, including Willie Nelson, On the Road Again. But we couldn't afford Green Onions, but I did get one Booker T song. But then my composer, Ethan Gruska, the great Ethan Gruska, who's been named the singer-songwriter, no, the songwriter of his generation, because he produces, he has a couple of albums out. He is also a composer, and he doesn't admit this, but I will out him. He is also the grandson of John Williams. So, my Holocaust education program, Joanne, he is the composer of the last batch of those. And he is also the composer on Molly Ivins, on Raise Hell. So he can copy. So most composers, if they're really good, they can rip off a track, but not copy it and make it their own and make it even better. So that's, scratch tracks. So yeah, I curate music, but in terms of editing.
Interesting though, what you're saying, and you're talking about, you said about, first time feature directors. I find it's a hard thing for me to get across that you can up level your film so much with good music.
Music, that's why I do a whole lecture on music is the soundtrack to your life. Here's why. You go into a film, you watch the opening, let's say the opening, and this is what happened to me in film school. This is where I learned this lesson, film school. I went to film school with Jamie Foley. Jamie Foley began on to become a big director. Well, the first one, at close range. He did a ton of films, and, he had a pretty illustrious career. He's doing a lot of TV now. I know David Fincher also, same school. Jamie Foley, his student film, and he was a graduate student, and he basically copied Badlands, and made his own student film, but it was a ripoff of Bad. He did what most film, he was smarter than most of us, pretty savvy, from Staten Island. And the opening of his film, they got the car, they have a vintage car, it's Badlands, it's like the opening down the highway, driving shot, and the opening cue is Our Day Will Come by Ruby and the Romantics. And I watched a cut. I was in the editing room with Alan Magnolia, was his editor, and I was in there, and as soon as I heard that, I bought in. Didn't matter what the film was about. I bought in, because that music takes you back to that time in your life that brings back something that usually is a happy place or something that stirs joy. So you automatically, it's a hook. You automatically buy in. So music is the soundtrack to your life.
I wish I had thought before this to ask you if we could show the first minute or so of Raise Hell, because it's one of the best openings of a movie I've ever seen. In terms of the editing and the sound and the soundtrack, it's so superb. and I think that, and I just love hearing you talk about music, because it's, to me, it's minimally 50% of a film.
Oh, the other thing is sound. That's the other thing. These are my two big things that I rail about with my students. And like in this situation, what sound? Okay, the most underappreciated people on sets has been the sound recordist. And I know back in the day, they were carrying 65 pounds of equipment and they're running in the field. And they're always grumpy because everybody, the director, the writer is also bitch a lot, but, and for good reason. Director, you know, a DP, it's the boys club, and they're all, but the sound recordist is always the least appreciated member of the team, and they're always grumpy. And I told my students, you should genuflect at the feet of your sound recordist and your mixer, but definitely your sound recordist, because here's the deal. You could have, you know, Diego Prieto is your DP. Let's say, you know, Fincher as your director. A great script, amazing actors and actresses, the production designer. I mean, everything is top. You have shitty sound, nobody is watching your film. They are turning the channel, they're walking out of the theater, they don't give a shit. So, you know, genuflect at the feet of a good sound recordist and who's doing it right. You have shitty sound, nobody's watching. Don't care. Don't care how good it looks. Nobody can bear shitty sound. Sound is so important. In fact, music can be a character. Sound effects can be a character. You can use sound effects as the antagonist. Absolutely. In classic storytelling, kind of storytelling. So.
I'm just, yeah, thrilled to hear you talk about this, because I feel as though filmmakers are always so obsessed with the visual, but on the sort of the bottom line is, if the sound doesn't work, there's no film.
And directors should always take editing classes, or they should edit. It's one of the best places to learn how to be a director. That's how I learned to be a director, by editing. Why? Because you see all the mistakes, every department's mistakes, and you have to troubleshoot and fix it. I mean, and the expression, which I think is actually very derogatory, but I get it, but it's really fix it in post. That gives a director a pass. Oh, they'll fix it in post. Really? I have to fix your mistake and then you'll take credit for it. I had that happen to me so many times. But that is a great way to learn directing, because you see all the mistakes, you see what wasn't covered right or wasn't shot right, and you learn from it. You learn a lot from editing.
So, what were some of the musicians you worked with in those?
Back then?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, back in the music video day, I edited Red Hot Chili Peppers, Devo. God, I can't even remember. It's been such a long time. Martha, obviously. God, nobody's asked me that question in a really long time.
Martha Reeves, did you? Because
no, Martha. No. Motels. I did Motown. I did a lot of Motown.
A lot of Motown.
I did Marvin Gaye Motown on Showtime. I did that documentary, which was basically, there was no director and I was the editor. So I directed and edited that, because that was really directed by, it had a writer, and but there was no director. So it was me. So that was my first documentary, my first like professional doc where I got paid. It was Marvin Gaye, and it was the year after he died. And it was apparently Berry Gordy's favorite of that series, Motown on Showtime. So I did a lot of music docs. Jackson Browne, Going Home, I directed and edited that, and that won a Cable Ace Award. Ted Hawkins, Amazing Grace, which was, he was a busker in Venice Beach, California, who found fame late in life and then died like 2 years later. And I made a documentary for no money. It was for Geffen at the time, and they had been bought by MCA Universal? I don't remember, but at that time I was given $100,000 to make a documentary, right? Nothing. And the family was, Ted had died, and I gave them $25,000 for his publishing because they had no money. And I made the film for $75,000. I basically paid myself a salary. I mean, I paid myself my rent and my bills, and everything else went into making the film and the archival. And we got his manager became my co-producer because she was a dog with a bone and she was amazing. And we're still friends to this day. And that won, The Little Engine That Could, that won a Rose d'Or for the film that best reflected human values. Yeah. I did Fleetwood Mac. I did Eric Burdon and the Animals. I did a documentary, which I edited and then directed and edited a series called New Orleans Live. But it was, the documentary was Les Les Bon Temps Roulés, about the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. That was in 1991. I did, God, I'd have to look at my CV. I don't, you know, it's kind of like it goes, like I fell backwards into documentaries. So
how did you make the shift from being this very kind of independent to working more in as a showrunner and in Hollywood and that kind of work?
Well, I really, so it's funny that funny that I ended up being a documentarian, and it actually is perfect. I originally was accepted into the School of Journalism, but I had to get into cinema. So I did. By a letter I wrote to the head of the department at USC, and I was like 3 days later, I was in the cinema department based on my letter. But so it's interesting that I was accepted into the School of Journalism. Even when I was in film school, I was always curious. So, you know, it's one of my things I always say to my documentary students: how curious are you? As any storytellers, how curious are you? How do you look at the world? What do you observe around, you know? And I was making music documentaries, and the last one I did, one of the last ones I did was I did Shania Twain Behind the Music, which was the highest rated Behind the Music ever done. She's lovely. She was lovely. And I was given, it was insane. I was given 9 weeks to do it. It was crazy. It was insanity. And
That's awesome.
I produced, directed, edited, and wrote it. And my writing, I was told, was too PBS, which I took as a compliment. But that one nearly killed me. And I was having panic attacks. It was insane.
Oh.
And because it was a boys' club, and you know, about 5 weeks into it, I was so stressed because I was having to do everything and editing, and it was such an overwhelming thing. And suddenly the executive producer tells me, "Oh, no, we have other editors who are going to come and help." Everybody, nobody told me this in the beginning. I was really typical, very typical. Anyway, I got a call from a very dear friend of mine. We were really good friends. I had done all these music docs, and I was getting meetings, and I had won awards, and I was getting meetings to make other docs for Turner and all sorts of things. And my dear friend, we are mutual friends, knew each other for a long time, would party when he'd come out here, was a guy named Tom Beers. And I don't know if you guys know who Tom Beers is. Tom Beers created a genre called manly, I call it manly men doing manly things in manly places. He created the man genre, Deadliest Catch, Ice Roads Truckers, Axemen. There's so many series I can't, anyway. Tom was doing with Bertrand von Munster, they were doing docs. They were doing these kind of, I can't remember the series, but he called me he thought I'd be a great director for one. He really wanted me to do it. Then they had it didn't happen. They had a falling out. He went off on his own, he formed his own company. And he called me and this other guy I knew who'd been executive at Turner, who wanted to make a film with me that had fallen through. I was going to do a history of rhythm and blues called Souls on Fire. He formed a company, and Tom Beers and Tom McMahon formed it, and they both loved me, and they called me and they asked me to come on board, and I did. And then there were like 5 or 6 of us in the first days of original productions, and that's how it started. There was this series that was commissioned for Discovery back in the day when Discovery was just making nature shows and science shows. And it was called On the Inside. And there were these little 1-hour docs on the inside of whatever. And I'm the queen of subcultures. So I did, my first one was, believe it or not, for Discovery, was Road to Miss America.
From
We're
nature
back.
shows to Miss America.
Is that funny? Anyway, I produced, directed, wrote, edited. That was the last film. I stopped editing after that because it was too much. I started to work with other editors because it was killing me. But I did that, and it's a really good film. And I did Vegas weddings, Vegas nights. I did bodybuilders. I did tattoo wars. I did tons of subcultures.
Yes,
And,
what about the bikers, the women bikers?
oh yeah, biker chicks. So I wanted to call that Dangerous Curves. Discovery. I had to always so it's very funny because so I did that. Yeah, I made it's called Motorcycle Women. Very imaginative title.
Yes, great.
As a director and then a showrunner, I would always have to submit titles, especially at the beginning of a new series or something. And I would always do like 10 to 20, and at the end I would put the throwaways. So for Motorcycle Women was like at the bottom. I had biker chicks, biker babes. I had, Dangerous Curves was my number one. I had a bunch of them. The girls wanted to call. I tracked 6 women, 3 from New York, 3 from California, hooked them up in Durango, Colorado, and took them on a road trip from Durango to San Francisco to the Girl Power Ride, hosted by the Devil Dolls Motorcycle Club. And it was really well received. But it was all about, at that time, Discovery was all about boy culture. Tom did Motorcycle Mania with my friend Hugh King, who I brought into the company. Jesse James. I mean, all of that stuff. What was their Monster Garage? All of that was happening. And anyway, yeah, Discovery Channel. The girls wanted to call it Tits, Tolls, and Tampax, which I thought was. At the end, they picked the one at the bottom. Motorcycle Women, because it was that time. It was the TV guide, and you needed to be able to look in the TV guide and know. And that was for their demographic. And so, and they thought biker babes and biker chicks was derogatory, it's very PC. And I remember writing my executive producer at the network saying, in light of Prodigy's Platinum hit, smack that bitch up. I really don't think we're being politically incorrect. But anyway, it's Discovery. They were pretty conservative. At that time, Tom asked me he had a series that was on just one of the Discovery affiliate networks that somebody was doing in the first episode for an 8th order. And he said, he asked me to look at the first episode. And I said, you want the truth? You want me to blow smoke up your ass? He said, truth. I said, it sucks. I said, oh my God. And so he said, can you fix it? And I said, sure. And I went and I fixed it. I restructured it. I had a great relationship with the network executive. And then he said, you're a natural showrunner. I said, what's that?
I'm so glad that you're going to tell us, because I was going to have you tell us anyway.
That's how I know I tend to meander, but sorry. Yeah,
No, not at all. I'm just saying, I'm sure people want to know what a showrunner is. So.
Well, the showrunner is you're the manager, you're the left and right brain. You can produce, you are the manager of the series, but you're also the creative fulcrum. You're the person who comes up with the creative. You maybe have a team, but you're the one who drives it and you oversee it. And of course, in narrative, it's different. The showrunner is the one who writes the pilot, creates the series, as in documentary as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, then you hire all those in narrative. When you see all those co-executive producers and executive producers, they're also in the writer's room. Mm-hmm. In documentaries, it's a little bit different. It's the people out in the field. It's the people who've earned their stripes. And they may be involved in obviously writing, because you do, but in docs, you write it you have story producers. You write it from the footage, you have an idea of what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And of course, in reality, it's already scripted. It is written. So there are writers, and most of those companies should be WGA. Don't even get me started. I should be in the DGA and the WGA.
Yes. And I was very interested when I got to work with you on Addicted, how one part I didn't see very much was how you worked with the story editor. I've forgotten his name now.
Oh, Randy?
Randy, yes.
Randy, and then it was Mary Glenn. Well, it was
Mary Glenn, right.
Normally I would work with the story editor and I would be in the same city and I would do that. But because Addicted was, you remember how cheap it was and how crammed it was? Mm-hmm. There was no way I could be. Remember, I was supposed to go home. I was supposed to be up there and go home like twice a month. I was up there for 5, almost 6 months. I went home 3 times and one was just for 40 hours. It was too, you had to be in the field. So basically I was always on the phone. They had to find the story from the footage. I had an idea. Remember, I structured out on the bulletin board in my, my office apartment, which the production of the two offices we had, which were also my apartment and Francis's and Michael Webster. I had a big board and the structure of this, because it was an hour, so a 6-act structure. So what would happen, and that's how we started. From the first one, Mandy, oh my God, we had to figure it out. But we were always chasing our tail on that. And then, I created that first season. And then
another interesting dynamic that I witnessed was you dealing with the network.
yeah.
And then the network, you're trying to figure out the show, and then the network would kind of call in and say, yeah, but we want this. I mean, the show wasn't even figured out, and they would say, yeah, it needs to be more hard, or whatever it was.
They wanted it more. So we were going to originally have 5 minutes of the addict behaving badly. I think 5 minutes is plenty. You have your cold open, and you tee it up, and then you see, that's maybe 30 seconds to a minute title, and then 4 minutes of the addicts behaving badly, and then you get them into detox. Now, I had the acts broken down, and it came back that's what I said, how many times can you watch somebody shoot up in different parts of their body? And remember, and a first act can be your longest act in television, so it can be anywhere from 8 to 14 minutes long. 10 to 4, it was like insane. I mean, to watch the, Annie and Mike, oh my God, Annie Priest. Anyway, yeah. That series scarred all of us. I lost 20 pounds. Maya said 20 pounds. Maya said I looked like a camp victim, a Holocaust survivor. Yeah, that was a tough one. But yeah, so that's how I became a showrunner, was because Tom asked me to fix the series. Was called Plastic Surgery Before and After.
Right.
And it was on for 4.5 years. And that was one of the things that kept the wheels turning for original productions, as he was making his Kingdom, his massive series. I mean, Deadliest Catch wasn't Deadliest Catch at first. It was a documentary. Originally, it was called Extreme Alaska, and he had all this extra footage of crab fishing. And he said, what should I do with it? And I said, well, bring somebody on, let's, bring somebody on. And he knew this guy, Vince Maynard, who is an old school guy, fabulous. And he looked at all the footage and scripted something. And that the first iteration was called Crab Fishing, the most dangerous job in the world. And then it became crab. And then eventually I think they did one. It tracked really well. And then they did another crab fishing. And then somewhere in there, I mean, it became Deadliest Catch, and that it was off. But he had also had Monster Girl. He had huge hits. Tom found the niche that hadn't been scratched.
Right.
Dudes,
more dudes.
Doing manly things in manly places and manly ways.
Yes.
And I did the other things for his company. So I show ran a lot of the other stuff, the soft. But it's also, it kept, the wheels turning, and I knew nothing about surgery or medicine, but it was, as a show, that was my first 4.5 years as a showrunner. And even though the guys were making third more than me, that became a big contention. Oh, hello. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
I see our time getting really short. I could listen to you all day, but I think I'm going to.
Do you want me to show, or you want to show Raise Hell?
Yeah, I got it teed up. I'm going to show the opening minute or two. And what is the correct moment to end? I think it's like 2 minutes. Maybe.
You can end it right after the title comes up, because then it goes to the state capitol, because then it goes to the next bit is, Molly Ivins, what does it mean to be a Texan? And that also is
yes.
That's also pretty great too.
So I'm going to show that, and then we'll sort of try and transition you out of Hollywood and into, well, it's still Hollywood, but anyway, whatever, you know what I'm saying.
Well, I live here, so, but it's,
All right, let's see if this works. It's never great on Zoom, but
Make sure you click optimize settings. When the thing comes up, that's how you make it great. Because I do this because I teach in Zoom.
Yes.
At the lower left, when you do share screen, and if you ask everybody to shut off their cameras, mute and shut off their cameras,
right.
But you pick on the lower left, share audio and optimize settings.
Okay, Ah,
See it?
I think it's not quite.
I'm not hearing you.
Joanne, we don't have any sound.
Joanne, there's no sound.
No sound.
I think she's must be muted.
No sound. She's not. Somebody has to text her.
Joanne, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Stop sharing. Stop sharing. Can you hear us? Joanne, can you hear us? Hello?
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I've done something with the sound and I don't
Okay,
know what I did.
Joanne-
Now, Janice, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Are you muted?
No.
No.
No, you
Okay,
can't hear me?
I have messed up the sound. Wow, we were going so well.
Go
And
under.
I've messed it up.
You can't hear me?
Let me try what I changed. Let me go back to what I changed.
Can you hear me now?
MacBook.
Can you hear me now? Can anybody hear me? Joanne, you're the only one who can't hear
No,
me.
I'm still not hearing you. MacBook Pro speakers, same as system. Can somebody say something?
Hello?
Something?
I don't know what I've done. Um, I stopped sharing my screen, so I thought that everything would go back to being correct. Select a speaker.
Joanne, change the host.
Wow, and so people are writing in the chat that they can hear both of us. Oh gosh. I don't know what's happened.
You
So
go under, oh, she can't hear us, Jesus Christ.
I think I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to assume the audio is working. No. Okay.
Let me do it. Let me. Hang on.
Okay, let's see if this is working now. I've never had this happen before. Oh, Janice is offering to play it. I can't hear, but everybody else can, I think. So let's have Janice play the opening, and I'll see what I can do to get back on.
Hang on, I'm getting it.
Janice, I'm going to make you the host.
Right.
Okay, so now you should be able to share your screen.
I'm doing it. Just getting there. Hold the phone. Okay, now I will share my screen. Okay, here we go. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can hear you now. Yay!
Okay, here we go. Okay, now what's going on? Hold on. Should be playing.
I'm only seeing a white screen. See, if I had thought of this earlier, I would have been all ready. You found no video, Janice. Janice, you have sound but no video.
You got sound but no video?
Sound but no video, yeah.
All right, I have come to
Hang on. You had sound but no video.
Sound but no video, yeah, there was just a white screen.
Okay, let's try it one more time. Hang on. Let me get this back. Let me take it out of
Voice
this.
of Zoom.
For the two of us are so used to using Zoom, so it's just bizarre that we would have a problem.
Hang on. Okay, let me try it again. I don't know why. Okay.
Oh, I was going to suggest, let's just.
All right, I have come
Hang
to
on.
cheer y'all up about the state
Hang
politics
on.
in this great nation. And I know you are in need of cheer.
Oh,
I know.
okay, here we go. Okay. Just trying to get my, okay.
Still a white screen. And now the audio is gone. That's very interesting. The audio is gone and the white screen is up.
And we can't hear Browne.
Now the audio is back on the phone, but not you.
All right, I have come to cheer y'all up about the state of politics in this great nation. And I know you are in need of cheer. I know you think that it is looking dark and gloomy. Cheer up, it could always be worse. You could be living in Texas.
Our next guest is one of the most outspoken political columnists in the nation.
A three-time finalist for the Pulitzer Prize.
Texas political reporter Molly Ivins not only can, but usually does say pretty much whatever she wants.
What do you make of Dan Quayle?
I must tell you honestly, I traveled with him during the '88 campaign. I found him dumber than advertised. Honestly, think if you put that man's brain in a bumblebee, it would fly backwards.
The people who Molly took apart were the right people to aim at, and they knew it. People who had power and misused it. Those are the people who she aimed at.
What's your take on Newt?
You speak of the draft-dodging, dope-smoking, deadbeat dad who divorced his dying wife?
Battling the bastards is about as much fun as you can have with your clothes on, and she got great joy in exposing the bastards.
I believe that it's fair game when these guys stand up and say something foolish to lay it right out there and let people get a good look at what they have elected.
We got an issue in America. Too many good docs are getting out of business. Too many OBGYNs aren't able to practice their love with women all across this country.
I accidentally became an authority on George W. Bush. Kind of like the guy who climbed Everest. It was there.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Anytime you do the kind of work that Molly did, there's a price to pay for it.
Are you beloved by the folks who read the paper, or is it split right down the middle? Some hate you, some love you. How does that go?
They do polls every year to find out who's the best liked and most hated columnist in the area. I'm always both.
Part of the price is to be seen constantly as an outsider.
I think of you as a hateful, lying left liberal, and the thing that scares me about you is people actually listen to you.
I'm a Texan. I drive a pickup truck. I drink beer. I cuss. I hunt. I'm a liberal. So what?
The political establishment was afraid of her. Nobody wanted to have the light shone upon them.
Politics in this country is not something that is done by them. It's not those people in Washington. It's not those people in your state capital. This country is run by us. It is our deal. We are the board of directors. We own it. They're just the people we have hired to drive the bus for a while.
I'm sorry for all of our technical difficulties because we've never had that happen before. But I believe what happened was everybody heard the audio and could not see the video. And what I think is interesting about that, given that we were talking so much about sound and music and so, it just, I don't know, but it was just amazing to just hear the soundtrack, you know. And oh, now I've lost your sound again. Make me the host.
No,
there, you're back.
That's odd. I don't know what happened. I've never had that happen.
No, I've never had any of those things happen.
Sorry, everybody.
We're the Zoom pros of the universe, and I don't know what that was about. But
that was great.
It was amazing to just hear with no images. I'm sorry that everybody didn't get to see the brilliant visual editing, but the sound editing is just stunning. And the way that you use music and the way that you're able to, that track is there and it's driving and then it comes back, goes down, and then it drives forward again and then it comes back down, and it keeps just punctuating. And then we hear Molly's voice. And for me, you know, the first time I had seen it, I didn't know Molly Ivins, you know? So we're introduced to her by her voice and these amazing things. When she does that off the cuff thing about Dan Quayle, you know, oh, you mean the draft dodging, all the D's, you know, it's, the sound is just so amazing. I could go on for days. Wow. Now I'm not hearing you again, Janice. You're muted. I think it's a simple thing. You're muted. Yes.
I'll tell Bob Browne, my mixer extraordinaire, who's done all of my stuff for the past 20 plus years.
And another thing about it, and the fact that it played at Sundance and it won the Audience Award at South by Southwest. Of course, that was her home, right? In Texas.
Stomping grounds.
Huh?
Her stomping grounds.
Her stomping grounds, yes. But to me, when I hear documentary, and I love documentaries, so don't get me wrong, but when I hear documentary, I do not expect that kind of opening. I do not expect that kind of power and rock and roll and hitting fast editing that's happening there. That is the last thing I'm expecting to watch. And that's just so exciting.
Well, that's who she was. I mean, how many documentaries make you laugh?
Ah, well, there's that as well. And since you made it, and since the film has been released, her words are only more accurate.
Yes, she's very relevant. That's why her, you know, like I say, Molly's driving this bus. I'm just blessed to be on her ride. I mean, the fact that we found out we got into Sundance 10 days, it was literally, no, it was a week after the 2018 midterms when, you know, 101 freshman congresswomen were elected. And it was the perfect lead up to the fiasco we've been in, and we got picked up, we jumped the pond. You know, we opened, Molly's driving the bus. I say that for a number of reasons, because so many things happened. Every time you try to push, you want something to happen, it's not on your time frame. You know, a project has its own creative breath. It has its own life force, and you have to let it breathe and birth itself. Get out of the way, because chances are if you're in the way, it's your ego that's in the way. So you got to get out of the way. It really does have its own trajectory. And I really learned that on this 7 years that it took me to make this. You know, every step of the way. There's so many experiences that I had of that, but the best one is we won numerous awards at other film festivals as well. And then we got picked up by Magnolia Pictures, and which is definitely where you want to be if you're making an independent documentary. And they decided to release it in late August, and they picked August 30th. And I remember that week I'm going, we were going to have a premiere, like a premiere special on August 28th. And I was going to have to be in Austin for that week doing press and stuff. But it was really August 30th. And I was like, why is that name? What is that? And all of a sudden it hit me. I've only been climbing a mountain called Molly for, 6.5, 7 years. August 30th was was going to be, at that time in 2019, was going to be Molly Ivins' 75th birthday. Mm-hmm. Who else is driving this bus? And they didn't know that. That was actually extraordinary. It's Molly is driving the bus. And we, the little engine that could, we stayed in theaters 18 weeks from Alabama to Alaska, which is extraordinary for an independent documentary.
Yes. So did you say 7 weeks?
18 weeks.
18 weeks. That's crazy.
And then it's streaming on Hulu. If you get Hulu, you can see it for free. You can also download it off of, rent it off of iTunes, Amazon, what have you. And we jumped the pond. We had a London, we had a UK premiere at a curated film series in January of 2020. And from that, we got a UK distributor, Modern Films, which for women and documentaries is extraordinary. They have a documentary out right now called Women with Transistors, Sisters with Transistors, which is supposed to be phenomenal. And it's Eve Gabbro, and she picked it up, and she released it in the UK and Ireland in the lead up to our election on October 23rd, 2020. And even though it was streaming mostly, it got a whole new audience of Molly fans. And we've just signed a deal with a major Hollywood player to make it into some sort of narrative.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And I know we're well over time, but could you just add a little bit about your work on the Holocaust projects?
Sure.
Because I think that's, when I think about the way that you've built your kind of post-show running career, I feel as though these projects have gone back and forth, and you've kept them going forwards all this time. So please tell everybody a little bit about that.
So the Holocaust series, it's called What We Carry. And in 2010, I was doing I was doing Addicted, and with Joanne. And the gal who is my boots on the ground producing partner, Amber Howell, approached me. Her mother-in-law was part of this, the United Jewish Federation of Tidewater in Virginia, part of Norfolk, Virginia. And they had a Holocaust speakers group. And what was happening is Holocaust survivors were dying, or they were getting just too old to go around and tell their first person accounts. And they were looking for a way that, how do you keep that going? So Amber and I, her mother-in-law turned to her and said, "You make documentaries, don't you?" And so Amber turned to me. Amber had been at Tom Beers at Original Productions, had been my researcher, associate producer that I basically upped, and we eventually became producing partners. We've been friends for over 20 plus years. She is amazing. And so she and I put our heads together and we came up with a series called What We Carry. And it is first person narratives of a survivor's journey of survival. And it's about memory too. Memory is subjective. And I didn't want to, make it expository. It is one person telling, it's their memory of their journey. So any exposition about World War II, what was going on, would be covered by either the docent or the teacher, because it's mostly used in school from junior high up, and it's been they've gone to naval bases, military, all sorts of places to show these. And we've done 8 of them. 7 of them are out. The last one got put on a back burner. Colonel Ed Shames, one of the band of brothers, Jewish, as he called it, Jew boy from the South, liberated he was there at Dachau. He also was on Normandy and Battle of the Bulge. He is truly an amazing guy. And we did his story, and I filmed him in 2015 or 16, and he is now 97. And it's been on a back burner because of Molly and everything else. So I'm going to be editing it the second half of the summer, finishing it.
Okay.
But they've been received, it's been presented at Yad Vashem. And basically what we did is it's stories of survivors, and they're just one voice, and they tell their stories, and we use archival to supplement it. But they're told they're anywhere from, I'd say, 20 minutes to 30 minutes. There's 5 or 6 parts, and they're 3 to 5 minute mini docs, because we're in an age of short attention spans. Amber and I, back in 2010, said these kids can't hold it. So the docent, the teacher, can play it in chunks or sections, or let the whole thing run. We've had big screenings at the MOT and Museum of Tolerance on the big screen, where we played the whole thing. We've had screenings where it was 1,500 people came, and it was sold out. It's now housed in the permanent collection at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. It's very, very moving, especially for younger people there are kids who don't even know the Holocaust happened. And so besides just survivors, we got into telling Dame Mary Baracco, who basically was Catholic as a young girl and teenager, was part of the Belgian resistance, was an American whose mother was Dutch and went back to live, not Dutch, Flemish, went back to live, and she joined the resistance and saved tons of Jewish children. She was captured with her fiance. He was executed. She was sterilized, 18 years old. She stuck to her story. She never gave anyone up. They let her out 6 months later. She went right back to the front lines and was liberated. She's been knighted. Of course, Yad Vashem will not accept her yet she just passed away. Dame Mary Baracco is a heroine. What a story. That's a Hollywood movie. Joanne, you should see that. I should send you the link.
Oh, I would love to.
Bill Jukes was a liberator of a little known death camp called Gunskirchen Lager, which he didn't even know what a Jew was. He was on the part of Patton's Forward First, the radio ops, and they were in the four men in, radioing ahead as the Allies moved towards Berlin. And he discovered this death camp, and his story is astounding. And so we started to tell other stories around, and What We Carry, we've made 8 of them, and I'm very proud of it. And it is life's work. I mean, I stopped show running around 2012, which is when I started Molly. And I was very well into we did our first 4 What We Carries. And I did a few jobs, working on other docs as a producer, director in the field, just to make money. But I then started teaching in 2014, 2015 to supplement. And yeah, I miss making my showrunner's salary and all of that, but and I have certain things people want to do, but I have to do what matters. I have to do things that matter, things that are about my theme, my current theme. I've just cleared the decks on everything. I was offered 2 narrative scripts to direct, possibly. I've cleared the decks. I need to empty out to see what's next to come in.
Yes.
You have to empty out. So big themes for me are shared humanity. We have one planet. We are one people. Stop the tribalism. We have a shared humanity. We're going to hold on to life as a species. We are a species.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Janice, because you give me confidence that if you say that, then it's true.
So anyway, I teach.
Yes. We're well over time, but just if anybody has a question before we let Janice go, that would be so great. Diane, you remind me so much of Janice, Diane.
Well, I take that as an extreme compliment. Janice, it's so great to meet you. I absolutely love Molly. When I saw it a couple of times, like right back to back, because it's just,
it's full, isn't it?
Oh my God, it's amazing. And so my question was basically like, how did you do that? It sounded like you guys were the first people that got into the archive. And I mean, how did you pull that together?
Diane's an archivist, so
yeah, I mean,
you would ask.
Well, okay. You should. Amber should be here. Amber had to clear 1,400 clips.
It sounded like it just was this
in 5 weeks between getting into Sundance, locking picture, and getting a DCP to Sundance. It was insanity. I mean, we had some things that were still outstanding, and we claimed fair use, and we had Michael Donaldson as our attorney. So there was a lot of fair use. But still, our archival was a huge part of our budget. I climbed a mountain called Molly. I would find things. I was, I made docs. I was always pulling stuff. I found so much. Obviously, back in the day, you used to have to go to archives. Now you have the internet. What a great tool. First of all, Molly, all the C-SPAN stuff, it was there, and her papers. I lived in the Briscoe Center for American Studies at Texas, Austin. Don Carlton is the executive director. In fact, he has housed the documentary there. So he has copies of all the interviews and all the transcripts. And as a result, the good people of Texas, thank you, the state of Texas, through his budget, was able to pay us. And that actually helped me complete my post-production with 3 $10,000, $10,000, $12,000 increments. So in our last, when I brought on an editor, because for 5.5 years I edited myself, and then I brought on Monique Zavostovsky, my co-pilot, to help me, give me distance. And we would both be editing, like I jump on, and then, but she really, and I gave her the solo editing credit, because even though I edited, I have additional editing. I don't need, I gave us both a writing credit, because basically we wrote it. In a doc, you write it in the post-production process. It gets written based on what you shoot or what you get or what you acquire. So yeah, I was climbing a mountain called Molly, and 1,400 clips had to be cleared. Oh my God.
Wow. Maureen is making a documentary. She has a question.
Sure.
And Janice, anytime you have to go, just go. Go ahead, Maureen.
Hi, thank you so much, Janice. I want to say, like, the breadth of your work and experience is really inspiring. Like you, I like to do all the things. So I love like that thought of like doing so many different things. But right now, like Joanne said, I'm working on my first feature documentary, and obviously have a very limited budget. And I know that you've worked on really tight budgets. And I'm wondering what advice you have for stretching the dollar, for like making the most of my limited documentary budget.
Excuse me.
Gesundheit. Maureen didn't mention that she's making a documentary in Madagascar about vanilla farm women who farm.
Oh, Madagascar. I was gonna vanilla bean.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I never got in the film business to make money. Clearly, I make documentaries. I still have yet to be paid. I mean, I think I've made maybe an eighth of my, or sixth of my director's salary for 7 years of work, which was nonstop and never stopped. And I hope to eventually start getting something back. You have to make it stretch. I mean, I made Ted Hawkins for $75,000. The publishing alone, his songs was 25,000. We made deals. You know, I'm very good, and people I've worked with at, you know, getting deals made, doing people giving you favors, getting things done. When as a filmmaker, I would never pay I would only pay my rent, my expenses. I never give myself a salary. I had to learn to stop doing that. And it's a drag for documentary filmmakers, and a lot of us are women. You know, in terms of the golden age of documentaries right now, and people are getting funded, yes, but it's the same. It's a lot of the same suspects who always get funded. It's the established.
Yes.
It's the one. It's the Alex Gibneys and no Jigsaw Productions. You know, Alex makes great films, but it's that, you know, Dawn Potter, God bless her, but they're the ones, you know, they got in, and it's hard. It's like it's still the same game. It's still the dialing for dialing for dollars. We did fundraisers, Carlisle and I, my producing partner, trying to get money out of Texas. It's hard. You know, we did a very successful Kickstarter. Documentaries have a much better chance on crowdfunding than narratives because it's cause oriented. And so you have to know, here's the big thing about raising money, Maureen, who's your target audience? First of all, are you fiscally sponsored? You have fiscal sponsorship?
Yes, I do.
Good, because then every every donation is tax deductible. Perfect. Then you have to, who's your target audience? And as you gather materials, start making, you know, it's like promotion. Social media is the way. Create an Instagram page for your film. Post, do fundraisers. When you get something that you feel can build it, find out who the funders are. I mean, Jonathan, at Full Frame, we screened 1,000-seat theater, completely sold out, one night only at Full Frame for Molly. Somebody asked a question, what's your budget, or how, we're not allowed to tell the full budget, but what, do you still, you know, we said we still need money. We're $65,000 that we need for archival. And we just let it be known during the Q&A. I come off the stage and there's a man, he says, I think I can help you. I said, really? He said, absolutely. Gives me his card. And he said, Jonathan Logan. The Jonathan Logan Foundation is based in, Joanne knows who Jonathan Logan probably is, based in Northern California in Berkeley. The Jonathan Logan Family Foundation is all about freedom of the press, speaking truth to power, all sorts of things, you know, inequality, gender issues. And Jonathan was there. He loved the film. He flipped out and he said, you have to go through the process and apply for a grant, but we'll push it up. And I said, we have 65,000 in archival. He said, done. But we still had to go through the process, but we had that money in like 5 weeks. We flew back. We had a meeting we had the San Francisco Film Festival, Joanne. We had lunch with Jonathan. I brought Carlisle and James. Carlisle was there. Jonathan loved, and he and I are friends. So he's somebody now I can go to when I have whatever my project is going to be. I can go to Jonathan. He loves me. So, you know, James, my producing partner, is really good at that. I'm not so good at it, but I'm learning to cultivate. But start promoting as you get footage, as you put stuff, you know, put together a teaser, a fundraising tool. I had the same fundraising tool for 6 years. And actually it's part of the opening of the film. It stayed the same. And we just, oh yeah, there's scenes in there that were in my original fundraising. But we moved things around. We opened it up. We shifted. But the opening is still always what it was in the original sizzle, which I edited.
Wow. Wow. See, I love that opening.
With the help of the guy who helped me do the sizzle.
Yeah, nice. I think we should wrap up unless anybody has a burning question that they have to ask, which I wouldn't be surprised, but we're very over, and I just want to be respectful of your time. Janice, I mean, just so fabulous always to listen to you. I really could listen to you all day.
Joanne, you're the best. Thank you for wanting to have me. And I really appreciate it. Yeah, I don't have a website these days. My website has to be redone. It's so old. So you can IMDb my credits. I know. It's like I just have no time between teaching and with Molly coming out and everything else. So
Lexi posted a lot of the films, so people will be able to see. I really highly recommend Molly, not just because it's hilarious and you're going to learn a lot and it'll give you some hope, but because of the filmmaking, you know, because of the filmmaking.
If we wanted to reach out to you, Janice, what would be the best way to do that?
Oh, here.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
Diane, you have my email address, so I can forward something. You know. But thank you so much. Say hi to Maya. Say hi to all of my friends there. I miss very much. And thank you everybody for coming. And bye-bye. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye.